Okay, we are on Artemis. Thank you so much for joining us here at Bioimmersion. We love you, we respect you. I will have everybody get the link to our first conversation, but please introduce yourself and tell us what you've been doing lately. I know a little bit about it, but everybody would love hearing about your new adventure.
Thank you so much, Dory. I love you too, and am so honored and delighted anytime we connect. It's medicine for me just connecting with you. So I really appreciate you inviting me and taking the time and for us to talk about a really beautiful subject that I think is, I mean, it's always a good time for it, but about like women's health. So I've been really focusing a lot on women's health lately. I am a naturopathic physician, a licensed acupuncturist, and I had the pleasure of meeting you and Sean in Seattle, Washington, when I was at Bastyr. And I also am the owner and medical director of Artemis Wellness Center in Milford, Connecticut, and do a lot with Mediterranean nutrition as well. I just did a blog for Dr. Kara Fitzgerald on myths of olive oil and am the author of The Anti-Inflammatory Diet for Dummies, which we are revising right now. So it's going into our third revision. And one of the things that we added was a chapter on women's health and inflammation. So those are
Wow.
a couple of things going on. And the other big piece is that, I was very delighted and honored to receive a grant by the Women Business Development Center, the Ignite grant, to do a breast health program and emphasis on health. Because, when we look at women's health, a lot of the language is, focused on infertility or cancer. And so the breast health program is especially important in Connecticut because Connecticut has one of the highest rates of breast cancer in the country. And we really
Wow.
want to do something to shift that 1 in 8 statistic. And we need to do it holistically from my perspective.
For sure, for sure. And do you have the data as to why the state has so many women that suffer with that?
That's going to be part of our exploration, but from what I understand in speaking with even Dr. Bard, who's part of the Women's Health Initiative, and we've collaborated. He's in New York. The environmental toxins are playing a role for sure. I mean, endocrine disruptors by definition
Yeah.
disrupt our endocrine system, which is our hormonal system, and as women we've got these little extra fatty places that we're holding things, and endocrine disruptors are fat soluble. So they're going to be attracted to the fattiest parts of our body. And now we know fat is an endocrine organ. So that means it regulates our hormones as well. And so one thing that we both suspect is environmental toxins are playing a role. But there's also nuances to diagnostic techniques. And sometimes, like, when you look for something, you will find it too. So we're going to be talking and researching early detection methods. And I'm doing the program with one of my dear soul sister friends. And she does thermography in the office, is Rachel Mazzarelli at Whole Health Holistics. So we are also looking at, how can we explore early detection methods, even breast self-exams that can help give us clues as to why the incidence is so high.
Oh, that's beautiful, Artemis. And I'm so happy you're focusing on women. As you know, my um, whole thrust in research, of course, is leadership and peace. But I so believe that women must play a very important role. And we have been actually, I think, pushed into a corner for too many years when it comes to leadership, when it comes to taking care of ourselves and then leading forward our nation, our world. But I think a lot of it is a mindset, our attitude, and so attitudes, I should say. And breast health to me has this fear that is associated with it that is so huge. And also, they go to a doctor, you're looking for stuff, you're going to find it. And so often it's nothing, absolutely nothing. And yet the woman has gone through 3 weeks to 2 months of intense, intense fear and stress, which, as we all know, is going to play a role in actually getting all sorts of other maladies later on because the body is affected. It cannot withstand that kind of stress. Sean worked with a lab that actually checked cortisol levels and tried to balance the stress response. And we, since the 90s, we've known that stress can just do so many things and lead us to all sorts of conditions. And so, how do you work with women around the stress response? And then tell us also about all your tricks to take care of our health overall as a woman. And of course, breast health, which we are dealing with so many different issues. And lymph. Please talk to us about lymph.
Yes, and I appreciate that this is an open conversation because I know you also do leadership in women, and I would love to hear more about that too, because I feel like leadership is part of our wellness journey, is number one, reclaiming our own love for ourselves, which is one of the hardest parts of the treatment plan always, in terms of a holistic treatment plan, integrative medicine, naturopathic, functional, however you want to call it, but I'm going to just use the word holistic because it's really about embracing what it means to truly be human. And it's, I think we mentioned this last time, it's growing up in an Greek environment, where my mom grew up with like herbal medicine and cupping and, the chicken soup and like how food was always medicine and spirituality was always part of medicine. It's really, it's hard for me to understand a model that basically cuts off what it means to be human, which includes the mind body spirit connection, which we now know has been scientifically verified. So now we can be like, oh, now we know for sure. It's also evidence based that we have this connection. The gut and the brain connection, we verified that scientifically. What we think affects our gut, what our gut health is like affects our brain. We also now know, if we're looking at, the basic physiology of looking into why integrative medicine is the medicine of the future and needs to be the medicine to heal on all these levels, to heal in terms of what it means to be human is, we also have the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal gonadotropic axis, which is basically what that means. If this is a new concept to someone, it means that stress, stress being a perceived emotion actually too, so we can actually stress ourselves out with nothing happening. How many of you
Right.
out there have done that, right? Just like, oh,
Yes.
we're thinking, we're like the only creature that can do that supposedly, but I don't know, maybe my cat's doing that too. But we can stress ourselves out just by sitting quietly by our thoughts. So, fear, all the emotions, especially the nuances of it that we talk about Chinese medicine, but every emotion will go to, our hypothalamus is the part of our brain that tries to make sense of that. The pituitary gland is connected to it. That's where our hormones, like, the estrogen, progesterone, like these signals, LH, FSH, that go down into the other parts of our body, the adrenals, and into the sex organs, into the ovaries, into the uterus. These are signals, and this is a two-way street. So if, knowing that physiologically, the evidence is there that our environment, the stressors, the toxins, we'll talk about endocrine disruptors, all those play a role. And even you touched on something too, even like thinking about there's genetic family history, but now we're in a new era of medicine and science. We're in the era of epigenetics. We
Yes.
now know that genes are limited. And the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza, Dr. Bruce Lipman, like, even the molecules of motion, Candace, there's so many there's so much information out there that now we know that our genes are not our destiny, and how our environment, epi, meaning above genetics, how that's affecting. So this is our environment outside the endocrine disruptors, the in utero environment. We need to take care of mothers. Mothers need nurturing. Postpartum, there needs to be some, kind of care, especially for like, Black mamas. There's a big thing with infant mortality rates. We need to help our sisters that are, going through domestic violence, which is the rates on that are way too high. They will always, we really have something that we need to focus on there too. It's another area I'm passionate about, but helping women to have healthy births, healthy children. And even this idea that, oh, my mom had cancer, my grandma had it. Yes, there is an epigenetic influence that, because our ovaries that we have were actually formed in our grandmother when our mother was in our grandmother's womb, to think about, how we are connected in a very
Yes,
deep way maternally, and the influences, the environmental toxins that affected our grandmother will affect our risk of fertility, of cancer, of many things. So that epigenetic influence is really something I think we need to also include. So we've got the environment, the epigenetics, we've got stress factors, we have our thoughts, like, and how to reclaim our bodies, ourselves. I feel like the work that I do in my practice is really to listen, to see, to use the skills I've built as a naturopathic physician, as an acupuncturist. But it feels like I'm just really kind of, I've even used this in practice where I'm like, I'm not going to say Windex because that would be way too cliche and it's toxic, but like, kind of clearing away the film
yes,
on the mirror.
yes. Oh,
It's like,
exactly.
because we are inherently, our body's inherently, that's vital force. That's what naturopathic it's like, and that's one thing I love about your formulas. They are so in tune with nature, that they are in alignment with helping to remove the things we don't need. And that could be physical, it could be toxins, it could be environmental, it could be people, relationships in our life, could be beliefs and thought patterns. And Rachel works with Psyche and Motion Code work. So we are going to be bringing that into the breast health program. Certainly, we want, like looking at therapeutic order and naturopathic medicine, we want to have physical alignment, movement, our lymphatics. Why is exercise so healthy? It moves lymphatics. There's so much. Lymphatics is a subject that we started, really diving into deeper too. We have an online free group for women called She Care, and I'm happy to share that link with you. It's open to any woman who wants to be a part of a community that's very open-minded, that is
Wonderful.
non-judgmental. I want to bring that, we are in like this unconditionally loving space for, so we can really have some real talk. And it might be uncomfortable. Like in our first talk, we talked about how triggers are an invitation to heal. So it's not like it's going to be, oh, it's all happy. We know, like, even from the work that my girlfriend did. So I talked about the play my friend did on The Descent of a Nun, like, the heroes, the heroine's journey, our journey to health, our healing crisis. We have to go down, we have to go deep before we come up. So it's not all,
Absolutely.
but the lymphatics and all the things we just spoke about, factor into what it means to help what I do in my practice in terms of nurturing optimal health and well-being, nutrition, mind body medicine. We do acupuncture, we do herbs, we do flower essence, we do, all of the things that affect epigenetics as well. So I hope that answered your question okay.
Yes, it's beautiful. I'm so excited about the program where women get together. I love it when women get together and it's never superficial. We
Yes.
we may have an awkward beginning because we are getting to know one another, but it gets real very fast because there are so many things that we share in common. And I don't typically sense the kind of competition between women that you have in mixed groups, especially in the corporate world, where people have to hide their true thinking and true feeling, which is also stressful. And
Mhm.
so I love the fact that you're settling on the word holistic, because for a while there, we would throw integrative and functional medicine and all these other words, but we need to get back to what does it mean to be whole, wholeness.
Mhm.
And to me, wholeness signifies so many things. I love how you work with the different organs. I've done several posts on the crosstalk between different organs, and typically I think of my body as we, because we are made up of trillions of organisms. There are more of them than they are of us. And so why not create a we and start working together to love the wholeness in us. At first, years ago, I thought, self-love. And that word didn't ring true to me until I realized that it's so easy to so-called sacrifice ourselves for others because we love them. But what do we do for ourselves? Because you can't continue on and on and on to care, which has been the woman's role for thousands of years. We need to care for ourselves as well. Otherwise, we get ill. And it's interesting how we used to talk about men having heart issues continually when the data showed that women have had as many heart conditions, many heart issues in men, but somehow it was not talked about. And why? Why are we not in the front lines of research, in the front line of the news in terms of what's happening to us? So having you start to put an emphasis and building some foundation that we can really embrace for women health is outrageous. It's so wonderful. I'm
Oh.
pleased to know, and Artemis, you are such a leader and a powerful leader at that. And talk to us then about power. I call these series Share the Power because I believe that knowledge is power, and empowering ourselves is so important, especially nowadays when there is such a chaos in the world. Like I wrote yesterday for Happy Passover and Happy Palm Sunday, is that 32 countries, at least 32, have significant amount of conflicts and war. That's a lot. That's a
Yeah.
lot. And that's not speaking about the trade wars and intense relationships everywhere at this point between nations. So talk to us about empowering women, and what does it feel to be a powerful woman? Because I think a lot of women think that it's continually to feel these amazing power surges within you and being bold, but that's not really what it means to empower ourselves, is it?
Right, right. And I definitely want to hear yours because you are at the forefront, and I have so much love and respect for the work that you're doing with peace because, even the symbol of peace, I love it. The dove with the olive leaf, love olives, but like Irene is a name for peace. And it's like, you know, there's something, and you can, I'm sure, speak more about it, but we have to find peace within ourselves if there is to be peace. We have to create peace within our relationships. We have to, and then in terms of power, like, I feel like that is something I have struggled with. So I consider myself, you know, um, always a woman becoming. Like I feel like the most important thing for me personally is to be on a journey of self-reflection, self-awareness, self-discovery. And one of the beautiful things about where I am now in my life is I'm realizing the beauty and power. And actually, at this point in time, in history, with what's going on with women's health and women's bodies and women's rights, it is absolutely essential that we communicate, connect, and collaborate. And that's another reason why I felt like today on this full moon, perfect time for us to connect and collaborate because, and that's why I created the She Care group. And I'm hoping She Care connects with other women's groups so that we can, women are inherently collaborative. And so the definition of power, like when you're hanging out with your girlfriends, it's a very different kind of dynamic. I feel like, you feel the love. Everyone's like, oh, your hair looks great, or like, oh, I love that new shirt, or, we're each other's
Yeah.
cheerleaders. There's not this, this need to one up or to put someone down to make us feel good. And that's kind of the energy I'd like to see, in the world. And that's the kind of energy that does allow for healing, because we're looking at, that word self-care.
Mhm.
Self-care is not possible without self-love. And what is it? Like basically taking time for yourself. And that's one of the hardest things. That's the thing I've struggled with the most is, because if we look statistically, more women are caretakers than men. If we look statistically, even like I'm a single mom of wonderful 13-year-old twins and boy-girl twins, and it's amazing to see the gender differences there. And by the way,
Mhm.
everyone is always welcome. So I'm very open to like, the fluid nature of what it means to be human. But if we're talking specifically about the experience of being a woman and statistically about some of the rates of like domestic violence against women, the rates of how women are carrying a lot of the caretaking burden. Women are not being paid to take care of, in a lot of these caretaker roles. And it's like if we look at, religion, philosophy, the past 2000 years, we have models for caretaking. We have the Virgin Mary, we have Kuan Yin, we have like many models for what it means to be a good woman, a kind woman, a giving woman, a self-sacrificing woman, but models for as a woman to be, in our own self wisdom and taking care of ourselves. We don't have a lot of models. And one thing that I've seen, we've seen, especially in the 80s, it's like, a lot of women can take on, okay, well, what does it mean to be powerful? We have these more masculine models where it's like, I have to keep going, I have to work too hard, I have to burn myself out, I have to take, there's other models out there. And I think, again, I'm not saying my model is the best. I think it's like one of the beautiful things about holistic medicine is like it's the self-exploration. That's the key. But I do feel like we are really being called to work together. And so, to answer that question, if I heard it right, if I interpreted right, it was like about what does it mean to be an empowered woman?
Mhm.
Um, it means to consider myself as well as others and to develop those healthy boundaries, to develop, really like, it's so cliche, but that like put your mask on, put it on first, but definitely put the other ones on. But I think it's really very much about navigating and accepting our sensuality, our sexuality, our all of our parts. One thing that was kind of fun and interesting about even starting this group, because we're going to get a little risque. And that might make people just even saying that word might someone like even saying breasts, like someone might be like, oh, and if that's happening for you, we need to we need to look into that because, like, what are we not accepting about being a woman, about our bodies? What are we ignoring? What are we? And, so much of health and wellness, and like, there have been some really amazing books out there on women's bodies, women's wisdom, like different ways of looking at,
Mhm.
of characterizing. So, for example, even for me, I had a fibroid. And it was definitely tied to the anger from the divorce. Like I can understand even personally, and I see this in my practice all the time, how our emotions, how our, the body keeps the score. Like, we have emotions are stuck in our body. And so, better being able to create safe spaces to talk about it, healing modalities, whether it's herbal medicine, craniosacral, homeopathy, like energy like, we are really equipped as women to play. Our emotions are a way in. And that took me a long time actually to discover. I was like, oh, I'll just keep going and take care of everything and like being the primary breadwinner and like, it's easy to fall into that. And one of the things I love about being Mediterranean, my fellow Mediterranean goddess, is that is, you see the difference between like the blue zones and the cultures that are embracing the flow of life, that are embracing the importance of family and taking time. And so I'd say part of my empowerment now is being conscious of what my needs are and fulfilling them in a way that feels good for me.
Wow, that's beautiful and so right on. I think that empowering ourselves is really paying attention to where we're at and what we want to become. For me, it's always been evolution. How am I evolving? How am I recreating myself to um, be the kind of person that I want to be? I've always had these images of the future and images of what I want to be. I've known I wanted to do research forever, but it took me a while to get there, right? But it's how we're evolving and feeling that power behind our evolution, to accept every step of the way, to not criticize. I am so hard on myself at times where I sit down and I start doing a self-reflection. It turns out to be more about critiquing myself than reflecting. And I go, oh my God, what am I doing? Because you feel your emotions getting to weigh you down and you think, no, I'm actually a fabulous human being. And so it's playing with those emotions of acceptance and feeling at peace with who you are, knowing that you want to become somebody possibly very different than who you are now, but that there is a growing journey to go through, which is a beautiful journey, just to go from being married and whether it's from divorce or death of a spouse, we still have to find ourselves, right? To the wholeness in ourselves, and or to go from someone who has been alone all this time to all of a sudden being with a partner. What does that mean? And how are you different with a partner than you are with yourself? Or how are you different with this partner as opposed to that partner? Or as you mentioned, how are you different with your girlfriends and the circle of women that you get to sit down and all of a sudden all inhibitions are out the window and you feel like you're totally yourself? What does it mean to be totally yourself, and why is totally yourself not get to be transferred into the boardroom or academic situation? And so my thing is, how can we be whole and truthful with ourselves and with impeccable manners bring that to our friends, to our colleagues, to the different situations that we find ourselves in? And so paying attention to our health, I think, is so foundational in finding out who we are, and especially using the model that you are describing here that touches upon everything from our spirituality to our physicality, the emotions. And being a woman, we know that we are absolutely controlled by our hormonal output. The estrogen, progesterone, the dipping down, the coming back up. It is right then and there a journey and a half. And it can be confusing, especially for young women who don't know how to discipline their emotions and realize that emotions are for sure chemicals in the body. I mean, when a hormone dips down and you're irritated, what does that mean?
Right.
Does that mean that that's really who you are? Because, hey, that's how I feel. Or does that mean something is going on in my body that is affecting my emotions? Okay, how do I deal with that? What do
Yeah.
I need to do to bring myself back to that balance and equilibrium in my body, in my mind, in my emotions? And that's not easy. That's not an easy journey to handle throughout our life, and especially when you're young. So I know we're taking a lot of time developing these points. I love discussing these issues. Tell us just a little bit, how do you help young women handle their health journey, especially because they don't have that kind of understanding and discipline that a more mature woman has.
Yes. Thank you, Dory. And I always like I can't wait to talk to you more about like what you're doing with your leadership and peace studies. And, you know, I'm gonna kind of be a little like, I don't know, just say, because I think, instead of discipline, I've heard you mention that word a few times, like I think that's been a word that we've had to use to function. Like it's almost like be a good girl, sit down, like go into your box so I can handle you. We women have been placed into a box where this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. You don't have
Right.
control over this part of your body. Don't be a Karen, don't be a this, don't be a that. Like there's a lot of social negativity around women in different states of being of emotion. And I'm here to just if tell everyone that is a construct. That is a Western construct. If we look back thousands of years ago in matriarchal cultures, even in non-matriarchal, like before culture became so polarized and about hierarchy,
Mhm.
as women, young, old, like, whether it's, you're getting your first period or your breasts are growing and you're being looked at differently, or, you're having an early menopause, or you're going through infertility issues, or you're having fibroids or endometriosis, or spending the 1/3 of our life that most women spend in perimenopause, menopause, and dealing with the aging process. And, what value do I have if I'm not good looking, or if I'm not sexual, or if, like I mean, there's so much there, right?
So much.
So much, right? And we are the vessel for life and creation. And we are the caretakers, and we are paid less, and we are more physically abused, and
Mhm.
what I've come to discover is our emotions, and we've had this like, our we need an outlet for our emotions. So I feel like, even like, with dancing, I, was professionally dancing for a while, and I'm also going to be doing a belly dance Kundalini yoga workshop coming up with my friend Jennifer at Jai Yoga, who's also working on a Gaia TV thing. On Kundalini Yoga, where we go through the common transitions that women have. And these are archetypal. So if anyone hasn't been into archetypal medicine, read Marion Woodman, read Goddesses in Every Woman, Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Like there's so many resources for women because we are not linear creatures. And I remember when I was in undergrad, I studied bio and psych. I wrote a paper about gender differences in the brain. And this ties into how, our hormones are not like, they're not like in this linear pattern. We are in a wave-like pattern of multiple hormones. And we also have breasts that people are reacting to us physically, and there are expectations about how we're supposed to look, what we're supposed to do, and we've got it like once a month. I remember, like, I hope my daughter doesn't mind sharing, but like, some young women, they get their period, they're crying, they're like, oh my God, I have to bleed once a month for like 30 to 50 years.
That was my attitude.
Like
Yeah.
like people, like anyone who is not honoring the women in their lives for what we go through, like we really need to check that. And we really need to, and it's like no one's going to do it for us. We need to reclaim our needs and communicate them. That's can be a big struggle for women because we don't want to appear as overly,
Right.
but this is where Brene Brown helps. What you're doing right now, I'm hoping that people listening will feel empowered to speak and also to emote. So, yeah, we don't want to like, there are societal things, and I'm sure with peace studies, you have certain things you can help us with, but um, creating a safe space like they do in the Haflas, like, in ancient Egypt, women had these spaces where they can hear the drum beat, and like someone who was sick, you could literally like ecstatic dance, ways that some people,
Mhm.
dancing out our emotions. Some women are going to want to draw it. Some might want to write it. So it is essential for every woman to have a creative outlet because our emotions, like every double-edged sword, like the Labris in ancient Crete, it's like it's a double-edged sword. And so what
Mm.
that means is we have to navigate these two aspects. But I would really love to see, and I think like for me, what I've seen, it's essential for women to heal. We need to have a creative outlet. We need to have a safe space, and some women
Yeah.
have neither. And so,
Right.
like,
Hmm.
feel the anger, punch the pillow. Like, I love martial arts too. Like, take a Krav Maga class, or journal or talk to a good girlfriend. So I think, besides addressing the emotional piece for young women, there's like women's health. Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine, we have a very detailed women's health ways of helping with reharmonizing the body based on qi, based on blood, based on yin and yang. So this idea that women's health is new and there's nothing, oh, we have nothing we can do for women's health. I'm sorry, I want to swear right now, like it's a BS is the acronym for it, because we have a system of medicine that was actually a lot of it was empowered by women. Herbal medicine was like midwifery. Like we have had women's health medicine around for thousands of years. So it is time to reclaim that, ladies, whether you're 13 or 31 or 73, it's time
Hmm.
to reclaim your matriarchal medicine, the herbal medicine, the nutrition, connection with the microbiome, connection with the earth, and really be that conduit that we can actually, that's part of, one of the things that we're really good at is being emotional. If we
Yes.
know how to channel that. So I hope that's
Yeah.
okay to say that let's get emotional and see where it leads us, but in a safe space where we have someone to help us navigate that and the tools, the herbs, the supplements, all the things that we need, the body work to help us.
Totally. Channeling in a constructive way, I think, is so important, acknowledging our emotions. I personally love the word discipline because I am a disciplined person on so many different levels. And I've seen women in corporate situation, in academic situation where they get angry and just release.
Mhm.
I've seen men do that. Neither of them was disciplining their emotions and realizing that emotions often don't tell the truth, actually. just like our thoughts often don't tell the truth, that we are living in a constructed reality. We are living in through our programs that we've been learning without knowing that we're learning them. And so some of our reactions are not real. They're just programs that are coming out. We're angry, we're feeling emotional. Yes, let's face them, let's get to know them. I love that. I love that you're working with women in this fashion. And at the end of the road, for peace sake, I would like people to hold back a little bit and to say, I'll take care of you later. Right now, I'm in discussions and I need to put forth the best possible manners that I can do, because respecting another human being in every situation, no matter how outrageously angry I am with that person, is important, because when we're angry, things come out of nowhere that we go, oh my God, did I really say that? And yes, you've said it. Now you cannot take it back. And so that's the thing about youth that has not learned it. And I am finding out in our political time that a lot of adults that should know better are not holding back either, and just saying things they can never take back later on. And it's not a great thing for peaceful existence, right? And we can do it from a family to a community to a nation to international relations, where we just throw things at one another. And we can see that internationally with the trade wars that are going on, and just the way that different leaders in different nations are handling it. And I read what they say and I think, well, that's not very mature. That's
Yeah.
not what I would call really intelligent, to be handling the situation in that way and make it more difficult than for the people, the citizens of that nation. So it's so great that you start training women early on in their lives, and that you're working from a young age to older age, and that women are women. Let's explore ourselves. Let's bring out different facets that have been put in boxes. I like that description. And explore it, and then decide what do we want to keep and what's no longer working for us. And then let's think more about what do we want to create in our life, rather than what's been happening and then get angry at that. What do I want? And then what is that world going to look like and feel like when we actually create it? I'm excited about that. And I do want more information about your uh, collective, the collective you are creating, the tribe of women. And of course, I'm sure men are welcome there as well, or are they?
Well, whoever resonates with it,
But
I want
that should
people to
be
honor their
welcome. Yeah.
intuitive senses. Like, and if someone doesn't, then it's not, that's a part of also healing, is better understanding what resonates with you. I love the work of Sonia Choquette, some of that work of like better understanding our intuition, which is another thing as women, we tend to have, like, it's one of our senses that is, you know, sometimes denied, but developing our intuition. It's when I was a part of the Society of Consciousness Studies. Deepak Chopra, I asked him, what is intuition? And he was like, it is the most accurate of the senses. And I believe it is
Right.
well.
Hmm.
But like, to go back, and one thing I love about discussing things with women and with you in particular, like how we can play with these concepts. And it's not about like, oh, being right or wrong. It's about
No,
coming to a better understanding together that can help
right.
me better understand, and for bringing us all higher. Because like what you said about like bringing like, discipline in a peace studies sense of like not, basically it's like respecting someone. I kind of heard it as respect, and
Yes.
So, and that happens, anger in Chinese medicine is unfulfilled desires. So, if we are being pushed down, if we are not being able to express ourselves, we can get very angry if we're not able to have a baby and we want one, if we're not able to look good, like there's so many aspects to that. But I think that is a sign if someone is feeling strong emotions, especially anger, which is so easy for some people to, and I went through my own, teenage years and better understanding my own anger how to channel it. Like if we are feeling our emotions are out of control and not, and we're not being able to be kind to others in the way we want to, it's a sign we don't have those outlets. Is that we need those outlets. We need a therapist. We need, acupuncture. We need to start dancing. I think that, that's kind of my take on it. And I'm hoping, that would be an interesting research study too, wouldn't
I
it?
know, so many good things to research. Wow. Artemis, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I always learn so much from you, and I love it that people are going to be able to listen to you and learn from you again because you're absolutely awesome. I know we're very biased about each other. What can I say? 20 years of friendship, that's what happens.
Yes.
But but we're right about each other, right? We
Yes.
are absolutely right on. So, and that's what I want women to get is that oftentimes they feel a certain way and they know they're right about that feeling and they actually are. And that goes back to your intuition, and intuition express itself through feelings, through flashes. I have a lot of flashes that come into my brain that I see things and I wonder about them. And I've learned to actually take that very seriously, or a certain thoughts that just comes through, or a feeling that comes up. And I think that learning how to deal with all these emotions, as you are talking about, is so important for us women to be able to free ourselves from what we have been told to actually repress down. Thank you for that so much. I love you, and we'll continue on with this conversation.
Thank you, Dory. I feel like in order to share the power, I need to share the love, and I appreciate that, So thank you for all the wonderful work you do. And I'm just going to put a little plug in because I love the cranberry pomegranate probiotic. I use that one a lot for so many things for women's health. So if it's okay to share that, I also love your products. So thank you for
Oh,
creating such
thank
beautiful
you.
medicine that can help heal others too. Thank you.
Thank you.